We have some exciting Mariner updates in the latest beta for LOTRO, and I can honestly hardly believe my eyes that we actually have a beta on Monday and one that's scheduled to run for over 72 hours, even if barely. Still, I must advocate for weekend betas. But setting that aside for now, there are a lot of differences in the beta, but the main focus today is going to be on the Mariner and actually testing some of the changes for the Mariner out. First off, you can now properly use your abilities even when you have a non-dagger weapon in your offhand, which notably includes swords. I believe we're also still waiting on the ship cat feature for your combat pet. Other than that, one of the biggest changes here is to damage and a pretty huge buff for direct skill damage of about 50% increase. So even with my kind of poorly equipped and set up Mariner and beta, we should see a good damage boost. Now on top of that, we do have a few other areas of tuning, including some healing increases from some swordplay combos, as well as toss a bottle, and some other cooldown reductions, and quite a few other changes. I also will point out that I do like that Natural Explorer gives Vitality rather than Fate, because Fate basically only impacts our power pool as a Mariner. And kind of random, I actually didn't know this, but the Sail 2 skills are apparently supposed to apply to a Fellowship. I didn't even know that. Also, we are seeing more of a game-wide change to the way that different buffs and debuffs work, so you'll see that a few buffs for characters will now not be able to stack, and this extends a little bit beyond what we have with just the Mariner and Captain interactions. We also have that with some debuffs with the Lore Master, Burglar, and now Mariner. So that is something to be on the lookout for. Again, I don't necessarily think this is inherently a bad thing, but I really hope that the game is very explicit in what is able to and unable to stack. Still, I'm not sure that I'm really the biggest fan of that. And the main portion of this video is actually going to be testing some of these things out with the Mariner, and I also did want to point out that I changed this character spec a little bit and just have a little bit of different stuff compared to what I used to try out some different things, and the new Vitality trait is pretty huge as well. I also did get this character his virtues properly leveled up and made some improvements to my legendary items, but my gear otherwise is pretty much the same as before. I also have made some changes here to my setup to hopefully improve my gameplay, but it's something I'll have to get used to again. Essentially, we have a lot of our combinations and sequences here on the 1 through 8 bar, then we have some other more utility abilities on the shift bar here, as well as our AoEs that aren't really involved in swordplay, and our defensive swordplay abilities here in the control bar. Also, you might notice that the Shanty 4 with haste to make you go extra forward, that has a little bit of a changed function, but it's still a 2-minute cooldown ability. I also don't remember Recenter being this short of a cooldown. I thought it used to be a 20-second cooldown, so maybe we can try to utilize that a little bit more to not go too far forward or afterward, but we're probably going too far forward. And then we of course have the steady aft stance that could potentially be utilized. So I think the general opener will be pretty similar to what we used to have, so we'll go ahead and use thrust here, or whatever that one is called, and then sweeping advance, and at this point we can use our other ability here, and lunge I think is going to be our big finisher. So this early in, I will say it's kind of hard to chalk up the improvements in gameplay just from the buffs, because I also feel like I'm playing a little bit better using a little bit different sequences than I was before, as I'm getting, more used to Mariner gameplay. One of my big, I would guess, criticisms of the first beta, or just betas in general in LOTRO, I guess I will go on to this, is how limited time they are, so it's really hard to test anything in detail, even from the perspective of finding bugs. LOTRO betas are very short-lived usually and do not go on the weekend, so it's hard to get good playtime. Even with the exclusive early preview content creators had that first week, it still wasn't very easy to get a lot of gameplay and test the Mariner a lot. So a lot of the gameplay that I had in videos that I've had covering the Mariner are based on very limited experience, where I haven't really been able to dive as deep into the gameplay as I would normally like to make a video. Also, I'm going to go slightly out of sequence here. I don't know why I was trying to harm myself, but I did get that error message. But I went out of sequence there so I could use my AoE. Again, I'm still getting used to the new setup and some of these combinations that I guess I've gone through in more detail on exactly what they do and how I can utilize them in gameplay. We are a little bit low. Here I am ignoring how far forward I am. It's not too big of a deal with the stun, but I still think it would be best to avoid it. But it is something that I just not used to really dealing with, because it's a very new mechanic in LOTRO. So I'm usually just going full in on damage, which obviously isn't always the best with Mariner. You do want to balance yourself with the balanced mechanic they have, and sometimes go a bit aftward. Because if you go too far forward, you will eventually fall off the ship. All that said, I think in this opener, we're going to go full on forward and try to kill these side orcs. Oh boy, that's a really long stun. That was not related to the balance scale, but we're gonna try to do that to defeat the side orcs as quickly as possible and use our strong AoE combination here, and that will hopefully mostly take care of them. And then I can focus more on single target on this boss. We can use F4 after the finisher to return more neutral in our scale. And then I think at this point, I do want to try to utilize some more of my defensive abilities. In fact, I used the wrong one. I think I should have used Shift 3 there, because that will make disengage. I don't know why disengage briefly popped up. I stopped paying attention to the boss because I'm actually not sure what happened there that gave me so much half that I wasn't able to use disengage even after using check step to go quite a bit afterward. I wasn't really paying too much attention to the balance panel, more so the abilities, again, as I'm getting used to them. Also, we can move the balance panel now, so I can move it down here where I can see it better, and ironically, having it in the middle of the screen is not good for me personally, so I like having things out of the way, oddly, which makes them somewhat easier for me to see. I know that doesn't really make much sense, but hey, that's the way I work here. Okay, so I'm going to use advanced twice, and then I'll use my AoE here, and hopefully that will be enough to kill both of these ads. Yeah, okay. We got them down. Now we can focus maybe a little bit more on defensive abilities briefly, and then I'm going to go full on damage here, and then I can use F4 and reset my aft. We'll go ahead and use another one of our defensive abilities. I think we need to keep using defensive abilities here for a little bit. So we can use disengage. I'm going to go ahead. Actually, yeah, briefly popped open again, but then it said I couldn't use it. But I meant to use check step. That's the one I want to use before disengage. But of course, if I'm using all my damaging abilities, it's going to be really hard to go that far into aft where I actually have 7 aft to use that, even with these defensive abilities. But we did get through the boss, which is a huge improvement from the first beta week. So not only am I happy with my, learning experience here with the Mariner and getting more used to its gameplay in a little bit more depth, but also the buffs and improvements I made to this character seem to be quite handy. Now, what I'm curious is, for a big AoE pull like this, what can the Mariner do? Obviously, this is not the strategy to make this the easiest, but sometimes we don't want the easiest of gameplay, and we want to actually push our character a little bit. So that's what I'm going to try here, and just see how I can handle this maybe slightly more hectic than ideal pull. And yeah, with that combination still, I mean, compound attack into lunge is just such huge damage. It's a very satisfying combination, I will say, as well. Okay, so looks like we can probably pull... Actually, how much range does the Northwind have? Also, I didn't know that was targeted. Oh, I must have hit the wrong keybind because I have no idea why that actually targeted there. I'm also not entirely sure that Fire Pot being ground targetable is actually a good thing, because I believe you can stack the AoEs, like actually stack the damage puddle from it, if you do not have it as a ground target. But that could also be, I think I was spec'ing blue line actually when I had that happen, so it could be an unrelated mechanic. Also, yes, I did see we were going too far forward there, but in that case the stun was fine. Okay, which one is my debuff remover? That's what I've been looking for the whole time. There it is. Also, did that heal me for like 2.5k or something? Apparently rare ingredients. Okay, so that applies a heal to me. Interesting. Okay, I think I'm just going to run in and get this archer and start the fight with these signatures. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and shift 20 towards balance, and that was actually too far balance. That's what I was worried about. Then I think from here we're pretty set in this fight, so I'm going to head away from the boss a little bit as he'll be activating here. Alright, so I think in preparation for this fight, I'm going to use Shanty 4 with haste, and then try to use what ideally would be a very powerful opener with On Guard to start, because that'll increase thrust damage, so I get a little bit more damage with that. Then of course use Advance, and then Compound Attack into Lunge, and go from there. It might be useful to apply a debuff here first though, so we might try to do Salt Sea Blade and mix that in as well. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then I think as long as he doesn't one-shot me, oh boy, He almost one-shot me, and for some reason I forgot about that mechanic with the boss until that was like almost happened. I'm like, oh yeah, don't I have to pay attention to the mechanic there? But hey, me clearing out this room just means more content for you all. So I think once again I'm going to go through here kind of hectically and just kind of see what we can do with this character. I think using all my AoEs, see how much not only damage I can take in this case, but how much damage I can do. Okay, we need to use another finisher or somehow go afterward here. Pretty good amount. No, we're just going to take this done, which is okay. That's not too big of a deal there. Also, I believe that's an AoE interrupt and not an AoE daze, as I was hoping. We can use disengage though. If we actually played the check step to disengage mechanic, we could have seen how that heal works. Again, I should be able to use disengage, but then I use this ability that gives me even more afterwards and I'm suddenly not able to. So there seems to be some issue there, and instead of focusing too much on that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and try to actually survive this and not test Mariner mechanics right now. Now, I would say, when in doubt, go to the LOTRO store and buy potions because you're on the beta server, but I don't want to promote that at all, so we're just going to run in, and I believe this actually applies a nice bleed with our rummage of the knife. So we'll start off with that this time and get close to him so we take less damage, and he just straight up one-shot me. Because I don't think the boss just one-shotting us is the most interesting for this video testing the Mariner out, I will go ahead and get perhaps a more satisfying finish here in Fornost, and I think I can throw object at this Elite Master and he'll come down here. I know this was another thing that, again, very early in the Mariner testing I tried when I had no idea how to play the class, even less so than I do now, and it did not go all too well. We got some decent damage in on him, but again, I just kind of straight up died against him. So this time we're going to try to get revenge, and it's actually looking very successful right now. We kind of plowed through him with the increased damage, and again, using slightly different combos than I was before. We can go ahead and try to fight the next one with perhaps a little bit less preparation, see how that works for us. Then I think I need to apply my mitigation debuff and just make sure I stay on these. Okay, see, I can use disengage right now. It attunes 5 and requires 7, yet I am forward. I am not afterward. And see, I can't actually use it, so that does appear to be a bug that it's making me think it's actually usable. That definitely caused me to do double takes in. I would say it was a good cause of a couple previous deaths, so at least it's good to know that I'm not going crazy, and this time I actually had a chance to look at it in more detail. I might be getting a bit greedy, but I also think I can take 3, actually 4 elites on. It would help if I could count. That might show that I'm a little bit more prepared for the fight. So we're actually going to use all of these, and then I'll use my swordplay combo, and then I can use F4 to go back towards aft a little bit, maybe use some of my survivability things here. And I think for now on, I'm basically going to ignore disengage, even though it would be useful to use sometimes, but because it appears to be buggy with the display, I'll just ignore it. And I think for the final test for today, we'll try to take out an Elite Master and 2 elites at once, and we'll basically give it everything we have got here. So I'll go ahead and use my buff for damage, the stance at least, and then we'll play a little bit with the fore and aft scale. Okay, so it looks like at this point I'm pretty much going full in on the fore, and then I can reset that after using my combo. And we are actually sort of dying here, but we also killed them really fast. I think waiting and building up the damage with our combinations there worked fairly well. And actually there's one more thing that I want to test, but I'm just going to test it on these mobs for quickness reasons, and there's a good chance that I die from it. But essentially I want to actually purposely build myself very far aft so we can actually use disengage. So it looks like we can use that now, and I want to use check step and then disengage and see what sort of heal I get from it. 13.7k, I believe that's a full fellowship heal if you're interested in that, but that does appear to be how it works. Also, I actually went so far aft that I got stunned there. That's kind of funny. But we can go ahead and let these mobs kill us. Maybe we can get one good lunge on the raider, and you know what? I'm pretty happy with that quick damage we got there in the end. Anyway, I had a lot of fun testing the Mariner in more detail, and with the second round of beta, it does seem like the buffs have helped them quite a bit, in addition to me actually learning the class in a little bit more detail at least. Still, just because I learned the class a little bit better and we perform better today does not mean the testing is nearly finished, and it does not mean I really know the class all that well, or can even play it that well for that matter. So there is still some work to be done, especially with actually the blue and yellow line. I'm considering the next 2 videos being on testing the power of soloing, at least with the blue line and yellow line, the capabilities I have at least in the beta. So if you are interested in more Mariner content here, please consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, and thanks for watching everyone.